So for those who don't know you, just introduce a bit about yourself and your role at Ripple.
Okay, I'm Daniel Wolfenden. I'm the design and marketing director for Ripple. That's me in a nutshell. My profession, my background before this, I'm a qualified architect. So I trained as an architect for many, many years, university over in Leeds, and practiced in various practices, Manchester and Leeds, and then lived over in South Korea for a couple of years. And I practiced over there, came back. And then I got into a specialism in swimming pools, spa and leisure, high residential stuff down in London. So that was a bit of an eye-opener. And then it was only a couple of years ago, I sort of stepped into the family business here as design director.
I didn't know you did the whole speciality with swimming pools and stuff. I know it was like part of Milk, wasn't it? But not.
Yeah, so that was, it came about as a sort of chance thing.
Yeah.
I was self-employed working for other architects' practices.
Right, okay.
Word of mouth, I got in contact with Robert from Milk. And yeah, we hit it off. There was two of us in his garage for a couple of years, and we sort of grew the business to what it is now. So yeah, sort of 15 or 20 there at the moment.
Yeah.
And so we still work closely with Milk, with some of the manufacturing, and we do quite a lot of the design work as well. So yeah, no, it's good to keep in touch and in contact with them.
So how long ago was that then? Because obviously they've scaled to be like 15.
It was about 12 years ago I started. I was there for 10 years.
Were you?
Yeah.
Wow.
So quite a substantial part of my career, shall we say, yeah.
You must have been a baby in South Korea then.
Was that like fresh out of uni? I was quite fresh out of qualifying.
Yeah.
So I qualified when I was 26. Could say 27, but I got there about a month before I turned 27.
Yeah.
I continued working in practice in Leeds for another year, but always wanted to live and work abroad. Just wanted to try it out, and South Korea was the sort of eyes closed, look on the map, and
I was going to say, because usually it'd be like, let's go like Europe.
Yeah, let's try
test the waters, not like
language barrier and the alphabet's the same, something like that. No, yeah, it was completely jumping into territories unknown, shall we say. Yeah. I was the sort of token foreigner, but yeah, brilliant experience and hard work, but yeah, eye-opener again.
Yeah.
Loved every minute of it, but yeah, that also feels like a lifetime ago. That's going to be 12, 13, 14 years ago now.
Showing your age.
So I am, yeah. The greys are populating, and my gracious good luck to disappearing. So
no, greys always tell a story, I think. So it's fine.
Yeah, something like that.
So for those who know Ripple, they're aware that we transform retail spaces. But for anyone who's listening who hasn't heard about us before, can you set the stage for what we do and talk us about the key stages of like our whole end-to-end process?
Yeah, sure. So like you say, we specialize in transforming retail spaces. A real focus on customer experience, ultimately a return on investment for the customer. That's the whole purpose of coming to a company like ourselves. But we do everything along the whole journey from concept straight through to, we do the manufacturing in the middle and the installation right through to the end. And beyond that as well, it's very important to make sure that we're part of that feedback loop and we're with the client every step of the way beyond that once we've implemented a project. And because, that helps us learn from what we've done and the client themselves. So in terms of you asking me a question of kind of the processes involved, to break it down from design point of view, that's where I tend to come from within the business. It's all about the engagement with the client at the very beginning. We'd be taking a brief from the client in one guise or other, and we can go into more detail along this journey as and how you want to. But yeah, we have that sort of briefing stage, and then that's the exciting bit for the design studio, because we get to take that brief, pull it apart, and work on concepts which form many guises, whether it's sketch work, research and development, we're getting into quite a bit of AI at the moment, so that's quite fun. And essentially getting to a point where we create a series of concepts to present and showcase to the clients. At that point, we don't like to, not that we don't always, but we quite often come at it from an angle where we like to be quite inclusive with the customer. So it's not just a one-size-fits-all scenario and solution. We quite like to sort of engage their response to it. So we might have a few ideas on the table. So it can be quite loose and sort of a lot of sketch work, and they can see where our ideas have come from, which then opens up that conversation and that relationship so that we can all share our ideas. And that's sort of the nucleus to forming that brief even further to the next stage, where we have developed design, and again, further presentation, further hand-holding, further communication presentation. We tend to get to a point where the client's usually quite ecstatic, quite bowled over by what we've put together. That's without blowing my own trumpet.
I was going to say.
Response is generally positive. And at that point, again, we're still at sort of sketch, develop, design stage, and we sort of have the capabilities and usually go through for full visual work so that we can really create a sense of the space of the project, whatever the project requires and what it is we're delivering to, further enhance what it is that we're delivering for the customer. And again, the projects that we do, the scope and the nature is so varied. It might be that it's a whole retail space or customer experience and journey. I mean, the nature of the project varies, but the output also varies. But in terms of the amount of work that goes into it is usually pretty much the same. And again, full visuals, or whether it's animated, fly-through, stills, something like that. But it gets real buy-in, and it gets a lot of enthusiasm from the client team. And it also allows them to present internally amongst their peer groups, and ensuring that they've got onboarding from the rest of their team. So they're the very sort of initial design stages of a project, getting to a point where, we've firmed up a scheme or a project, the way it looks. But ultimately, it all comes down to how much is that going to cost me and when can we have it, So there's quite a lot involved there. And although we're integral to the whole process from start to finish, we have key teams within Ripple that really help hold hands with the customer as we go through that journey and that process. And a lot of that is down to the account management. So again, I'll blow their trumpet this time. They do they do a superb job of doing that and really nurturing clients' expectations on what it is that what the client's after, and ensuring that what it is that we're doing is fulfilling that brief.
You probably have answered half my questions, to be fair. Do you have anything else you want to add to that before we move on?
I'm only partway through the journey, aren't I suppose? Just keep rambling on.
They'll be thinking, God, what am I signing up for?
I know. I guess part of that planning and strategy. So we get a design, stake in the ground. We've got the account manager looking after the customer. And of course, there's coordination between, we need to get costs and budgets and timelines. Everything is usually done within a window because there are expectations and deadlines from the customer's point of view to deliver what it is that they're after. And that's their job really, is in managing all of that. And in the interim, agreeing costs, we've then got to take this very pretty visual and we've got to pull it apart. We've got to work out how this thing goes together in reality. We also have to communicate with our in-house manufacturing team, look at how it is that they're going to fabricate the elements that we need to do internally, bits that we need to outsource to specialists. And, that all comes as part of the whole team working together, and making sure we're there for all the client's needs. But as I say, timelines are usually agreed, budgets are usually agreed. and then it's back into the design studio with the technical team who were, putting together vast numbers of technical drawings and know-how to coordinate with the operations teams, the manufacturers, outsourced suppliers, contractors, where we're installing things on site and we're doing building works on that side of things. And of course, this all goes through the account management, who are the sort of interface with the customer, ensuring that they're aware of every step of the stage, step of the stage of the stage. I think I've just made up some new sentence there.
I think it showcases that the customer actually does have so much say within the project.
Yeah, completely. And like I said, every project's different and how we execute that plan. Sometimes it's a one-off, sometimes it's a huge rollout for, a few hundred stores. So, part of the customer's plan might not be just to say, yeah, we love it. Let's fabricate this.
Yeah.
That's a very brave, sometimes, vulnerable position to put yourself in, and it's it's advisable to prototype these things. Let's make sure that what appears great on a piece of paper also appears great on the technical drawings, and it seems that it's all qualified and it works. Until you see that physical thing and you get to interact with it, you don't know for sure whether it's the right thing. So prototyping, again, is something that we're very keen on. Again, it helps manage clients' expectations. We'll bring them in so that we can really pull this thing apart in its sort of tactile state. And we can review it, what works, what doesn't work. And, it's not usually back to the drawing board, but it might be that we're further refining these things. Is that core, is that finish right? Are we placing the product in its best light? Does it want to achieve more than it is doing? Is it achieving exactly what it's set out to do?
Yeah.
So prototyping, again, is part of that process before we go to that full sort of install and implementation.
Yeah.
And again, if we're talking rollouts, so 100, 400 stores, trial store rollout is also a great route to market. We may prototype it, it might get sign off. But again, that's a huge investment for somebody to say, let's make 400 or 10,000 of these things, whatever the scale and nature of it is. If it is a product, let's scale it back to 10% of our stores. Let's trial it. Let's get the feedback. Let's see what we get from that, and then we can review it. And hopefully, which is quite often and usually the case, we do get to go to full rollout with these things.
Yeah, I suppose that's being integral to the customer as well,
Absolutely.
because it's so easy to say, here's a concept, this is what we can deliver. But if you're not managing those client expectations and they don't get that delivery of what you'd promised them, then everyone's screwed then, and they don't have that. They don't have that vision.
It's very easy to spend somebody else's money, but ultimately, if you're not spending it correctly, and ultimately it's that return on investment from the customer's point of view. What return on investment means is different to every business. Usually it's bottom line, but is it more brand exposure and brand awareness, brand loyalty? It comes in many guises. But, in essence, that's what we're here to do and to promote. So if we're not successful at that, we don't really, as nice as it might be to make 10,000 or something, if it's not going to be successful in its implementation, then we feel that we will have failed on delivering on that. So ultimately, it is all about the customer at the end of the day. It's, the main focus of Ripple.
So then in terms of your way of doing things, because obviously you guys are the experts, but you want to get the customers involved as much as you can.
Yes, sure.
But how do you find that balance then, whether, say it be like a customer says, we want it XYZ way, but you don't see it as actually feasible for the customer, be it commercially wise and viable? How do you find that balance then, and how do you communicate that across?
That's a fair question, and one that it takes a lot of balancing to do something like that. I personally am quite stubborn when it comes to things. I can be quite protective of design, but I have also learned over my many years, as we've established, that it's good to take on board people's comments and other people's views because they're valid. And in all fairness, the customer's viewpoint is the most valid. They live and breathe the brand that they work for or they own, or whatever their status is within the business. So us as a design team, we really need to listen to what it is they've got to say. And part of that briefing stage at the very beginning is critical, getting to sort of get underneath the skin of that business, understand the people that work there, their enthusiasm for it, and what their brand and what their values are all about, what their client base is, their demographic. There's so much to explore before you even get to put pen to paper. So taking on board a client's opinion, so sometimes it is just an opinion that they might like something a slightly different colour to what you propose. Absolutely fine.
That's a
I might put my stamp on it and say I've done it for a reason. If I've got a reason that I'd counter offer that, but ultimately they're going to know what's right or wrong for the business, and hopefully we've sculpted what we've put together in such a way that we're delivering that for them, and we're just in the sort of finite detail of these things that we've listened to their needs and understood their brand and their essence, essentially, to really promote what it is we've got as a brief to deliver for them.
So I know we coin ourselves as client-centric, but that can often be like a buzzword in sales. So what does it mean for Ripple in its approach, and why do you think it's been so pivotal to Ripple's success?
I suppose it goes with everything I've just sort of said, the client is key. It doesn't mean the client is right necessarily, but they fundamentally they are, because they know their business. And we're there really as a support role more than anything else. I'd say it's quite an integral role. We work alongside them, but we are still a support for their business fundamentally to promote and enhance what it is that they do. So everything we do evolves around the client. So it is client-centric in that manner, if that makes sense. And in doing so, I've said before, it might be nice to roll something out as a one-off, but if it's not successful, we're not going to get the repeat business from that client again. And if we don't, then, we've failed ourselves, because we really, it's all about fostering those relationships. And if we're not fostering those relationships, then again, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. So, the client and being client-centric is fundamental to everything we do. And if you speak to the accountants more so than myself, there'd be testament to that, because their role really is all about nurturing that relationship, holding their hands and making sure that we're delivering exactly what it is we set out to deliver.
Yeah. So every brand has a story. What's your design approach to understanding a brand's narrative? Because I know you were chatting about understanding their core demographics and who they're targeting and their values and morals along with that. But how do you ensure that the design isn't purely aesthetic, just because the way you like it, but that it actually is a true reflection of their identity?
So architecture always teaches you that it's function over form.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's very hard to do, because it's nice to see pretty things, isn't it? Let's be honest. So it's nice to have that balance, to always have the two things like tangible and sort of run in parallel. But ultimately, it is about how something performs, how it functions, and whether that's its sort of everyday use and operation as a product, or whether it's delivering a return on investment for the customer, whether it's creating the brand awareness that they've set out to deliver. That's the fundamental part of the design process. And then making it pretty, that's an easy job for us as designers to do. That's part and parcel of what we do. But it's the research, and it's the background, it's understanding that product and the performance of what it is we're set out to do and what that brief is all about. It is really getting into the nitty-gritty of it and understanding the values and the brand and the people behind the brand, making that work with how we explore the design side of things as well. And the two tend to go hand in hand. It's a lot of sketch work, it's a lot of research, it's a lot of looking at what's out there, what does, what doesn't work from our point of view, and being able to present and promote that to the client, you know, delivering something that we hope is exceptional and is beyond expectation. And as I say, most of the time, without looking big-headed again, that's been a success of ours.
Yes.
So.
On the topic of success,
yes,
we can't not mention our work with Berry Bathrooms.
Okay.
It has won 2 Bathroom Showroom of the Year award with BMJ and BMN. So can you touch a bit on how Ripple's approach led to such a notable customer experience?
Yes, sure. Again, great client relationship, really great set of people. I'm trying to think I can't remember how we first got in contact with
I think it was a referral,
Berries.
I think.
It was a referral. In fact, I think it was a referral from a previous showroom we'd done. Anyway, we met with their team, David Berry, and they had a space which was part of their estate. They've got a huge premises where they trade. And they'd just taken on an old car showroom, still sort of in the form of a sort of 1980s showroom, if you like, standalone building. And so they set out, you know, they've got this brief. They want to create this great bathroom showroom space. They have a building which at that point wasn't suitable for a showroom. So yeah, I mean, we got into the brief, we went to survey the space and understand how they work, and work with all their different teams involved in it as well. So they had their own project management team, they have their showroom development team, and, you know, working alongside them, we came up with initial sketch work and some ideas. We also had a couple of standard product lines that work quite well with what it is they wanted to introduce to the space. So again, material palettes, precedent studies, sketch work, really looking at the layout and the customer experience, the journey, because, you know, I think it's about 250 square meters of space, so it's a good, it was a good footprint to work with. So it was great to really take the whole space, take not only our client, but their clients potentially on this journey and show them how they would operate it from their point of view, but how from their point of view, they would then showcase the space to their customers coming through the door. So yeah, it worked that way. And like I said before, we'd then go to visualization and walk through that space, and that really sold it to the client team, really understanding how it's going to look and feel, seeing those color palettes within the visual, seeing all these bathroom setups and layouts, how you would navigate through the space. And from that point on, you know, it was all systems go. We looked at the technical elements of it. We prototyped aspects of it. Again, we brought the clients back into the office, to the manufacturing on the shop floor to show them what we've done. And they had their own input as well. They saw some things that were fabricated, and there were costs associated with it, and we looked at how we could streamline that. And so we adapted elements of what it is we did to suit their needs. It was they had their own contractors on this one. So we supplied and installed the kit, but also they worked holistically with our designs and our specifications and our layouts, and then we used our kit to finish off the project. Great grand opening to it, and really well received, and it's become quite sort of, what would you say, a sort of case study for us and a great referral point. We've got quite a few people that refer to the Berries bathroom showroom, and that's usually a sort of starting point. It's we want one of those. It's like, okay, I appreciate that, but that's theirs. But we can do yours for you. That's absolutely fine, you know.
So with many of our showroom designs that we've been working on, I've been noticing your incorporation of AI into the process.
Yes.
So I'm just a bit curious about the inspiration to start incorporating AI and kind of the background around that. So if you just touch on that a bit.
Yeah, sure. AI, I think it's something I've been intrigued with over the last couple of years, and it's obviously garnered quite a lot of notoriety in recent months and the last year or two.
In every industry,
in every industry, not just design. And design maybe even one of those that was kind of behind the curve when it comes to sort of chat GPT and everything else, which I know you're familiar with. But yeah, from a design point of view, I was starting to see imagery created through AI, and it just, I was mesmerized by it really. Didn't understand it at all and just wanted to know more about it. So it was all sort of homegrown research at the time, looking at it and exploring a few different programs that are out there, DALL-E and Midjourney, and then also working with our own modeling tools and then putting that through different rendering machines, AI based, to get different results. So I was kind of doing this as sort of experimentation.
It's like a passion project.
Yeah, exactly. I just saw the value in it. And I know AI can be a little bit Marmite, particularly in the sort of design-led sort of world that we're in. But I think instead of being scared of it or ignoring it, I don't think we can ignore it. You know, it's there, it's here, and it's moving at a pace that nobody else can actually keep up with, which, you know, is can be a bit overwhelming. But I think you've got to ride that wave and try and understand it as best you can. But I think from our point of view, what it's given me is a new set of tools and parameters. You know, we're a small design studio. There's 5 of us in there, and we all have our thoughts and input, which is brilliant. But to have this other untapped resource that just requires, you know, prompts from ourselves, so we're still dictating what it's sort of delivering for us. And again, the pace at which it does that is incredible. So you can throw things out there just to give you ideas. And at the moment, that's all it really is. It's concept stage, ideas, inspirations, because it gives you sort of something that's a bit more left field than what it is that you might do, because that's your knowledge and that's your sort of avenue, if you like. And other designers have their own avenues, and, you know, their inputs are all, you know, and that's really valid. But from a purely aesthetic point of view, and sometimes, you know, from a sort of, there's a view, it can capture ideas with it. Actually, I've never even thought about that. Yeah. And that's a new way of looking at something. Or you could incorporate that idea, expand on that idea. So yeah, I'm just sort of fascinated with it more than anything else. And like you say, we've started to deliver that in our early concept stage stuff for presentations and with our customers with new briefs. Not wholeheartedly, but it's an element of what it is. And we explain that is part of the process. And on the whole, people are really on board with it and quite enthusiastic about it. And, you know, usually bowled over and sort of blown away by what this thing can produce, because it is mind-blowing what it does, and, you know, how it does it. I've no idea.
Yeah.
Not got that knowledge, but what it does, I think is brilliant. The results are so varied, and, you know, they come from all avenues. But as I say, because it is all text prompted, then there is that input. It starts with you to deliver that, and then it's for you to take that imagery or that idea and move it on further, or collaborate it with what it is that you're working on. And, you know, that might be the pathway to what it is that you end up developing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just find it quite exciting.
Yeah, no, I think it's exciting. And I think from what you were saying, it's work with it, not against it.
Yeah, completely.
I think ultimately it's not at the stage where it will ever be able to replace the human element. And I think that's probably where the fear mongering comes in with it with people.
And there's not to say that these things aren't going to sort of happen in the future. You know, it's getting cleverer and cleverer every day, sort of at an exponential rate. But at the moment, it still needs our human input from the very beginning, and then particularly during the process. At the moment, it's creating pretty pictures, and yes, it can do more than that, and it's starting to do things in sound and full video and all of this stuff. But when it comes to reality, you know, there's without that human check on it, you know, I don't think it can sort of take that leap into reality. Yes, it can 3D print and do all this stuff, but it still needs us at the helm, if you like, to steer it. So we'll see what the future brings on that one.
I think it could potentially, like a bit after COVID, everyone was craving that human touch and that human interaction. But before that, we were putting in like self-checkouts and trying to detach ourselves from that human element as much as we could. So I feel like eventually it could come to that point where like everything is generated so much by a computer that we're like, right, no,
I've had enough of this.
It's like,
real.
give me someone real. Like it's like
no, I definitely relate to that. I think the COVID thing is a real perfect example of it, and I think actually that's been a real sort of change in our industry. Sort of customer experience is key. People want to be out there experiencing things, whether it's in retail or just out there, instead of buying something online. And yes, ultimately someone might buy something online, but people like to go out there and experience things with other people or with products and be more tactile than they were before, because I think it's ultimately something very human about that, and something that we realize we miss when we didn't have it.
Yeah, definitely. It's that like added value element that you don't even realize is coming in with it. But so in terms of, I know you mentioned some of the specific tools and platforms that you're using. Could you dive a bit more into those and how you're using them in the process, even just your design softwares that you use?
Sure. I'll be quite brief, but it tends to be with a brief. I'll take part of our research and ideas as a sort of catalyst for prompts. And what I've learned with a lot of the AI, I tend to use Midjourney as one of my sort of main focal points, just because it delivers great looking imagery very quickly, and it tends to understand your parameters and your prompts. And that's after a lot of typing and prompting and learning.
And I suppose the more you're feeding it, the more it understands kind of your vision along with that.
At one point I was sort of typing in War and Peace to try and get exactly what I wanted, and you realise very quickly that it doesn't really work in that manner. It's picking up elements that you don't want it to necessarily, and focuses on different things. So, but in terms of how an image is shot or how it looks and its materiality or what's in focus or all of that stuff, there's still a lot of play within the prompts element of what you're doing. But in terms of purely from an ideas point of view, I'm able to, I've started collating various prompts that I know work for me, and I've started to stylize things that is kind of the beginning part of the prompt before putting the meat into the sort of descriptive element of the brief, if you like. So I'm trying to stylize things that work alongside giving Ripple its own AI signature, if you like.
Nice.
So and I say Midjourney is the main one for that. And then with the modeling tools such as SketchUp, there are sort of post-rendering tools like LookAX, which I'm sort of starting to play around with, and the Adobe suite as well. They're starting to introduce quite a bit of AI with that. So just prompts within it, the Adobe suite is quite good to see. I have messed around with ChatGPT now and again, but as I say, words aren't usually my thing, so I'll leave that to the likes of yourselves.
I know ChatGPT is my best friend.
I prefer pretty pictures.
Some people can say that innovation can be like a double-edged sword. Obviously, I know you were saying that it's usually well received with our customers, but I think for anyone who is a bit apprehensive about AI in the design process, some people might say it's not being integral to the standard design approach. What would your opinion be on that?
I mean, everyone has their own opinion on it, and you've got to respect it. And to be fair, part of the process, before we do present a concept, we do sort of say, look, AI is a route that we tend to do. And if someone's strongly, which we haven't come across yet, because I think everyone's still intrigued, particularly from their point of view, designers themselves might have their own viewpoints on whether they like it or not, or what it's doing to the industry. But I think usually they sort of are quite intrigued themselves to see what it's going to produce. Because, you know, whether they like it or not, it's an option to explore. And I think shutting down an option or exploring something before you've had a chance to look at it or appreciate it, it would just be, you know, would be a bit daft, really. You know, why not see what it does and then make your own mind up after that? Unless you have already experienced it and you've not got on with it and you say, look, I'd rather this comes from the human mind and it's been thought of in that way, which it still does. It's just we're combining the two and letting that give us an element of creativity at the same time, an additional flair to what it is that we do. So, you know, if someone doesn't want to, then that's absolutely fine. We'll stick to our traditional route to developing up our products and projects and briefs. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, there's AI, and I suppose part of customer journey and design we've not really touched on. I'm probably jumping the gun on questions, but sort of the digital as part of customer experience as well. You know, that comes in a whole series of guises. I'm sure AI will become an element of that as well. But, you know, there are simpler systems out there, whether it's digital screens or holograms or RFID or different ways to track and navigate shoppers, you know, ideas. It can help predict buyers' journeys, and, which has got to be good from our clients' point of view, because essentially, you know, our clients are themselves selling a product and they want to know how best to sell that product. So there's a lot out there already in the digital world, and as I say, as AI comes into play, as it already is doing, then they're only going to further enhance their options to help them get out to market.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things too. It's like staying ahead of the curve. Like those who want to advance, they'll be integrating stuff like this. And we've seen that from the likes of digital integration and that seamless omni-channel experience. So I think that's probably gonna establish who's gonna be key players within AI as well.
Sure.
But yeah, so just to finish, what do you think the future of retail design looks like, especially whenever it comes to AI? AI?
Yeah, AR's in there as well.
AR's in there too. Further transforming retail environments.
I just think it is. I think, I mean, we touched on various bits throughout the whole journey, and, you know, we talked about how COVID has maybe made us a little bit more tactile, wanting to go out and experience. And I think there's going to be more of that. You know, we used to have a high street of shops, and we would go to buy things from shops. You know, it evolved as the internet came about, and it's, oh, I can buy that for cheaper here and not go to the shops. But then we realized there's something missing. But it wasn't missing just going to the shops to buy something. You know, sometimes it's still a nuisance to do your grocery shop, and it's a weekly must. But if that shop itself is an engaging experience and a joy to be at, then you want to visit it and you want to experience it, and it becomes a delight, and it actually becomes, you know, something you look forward to doing. And I think there's definitely a lot of companies that recognize that, and, you know, they're really exploiting that, and really their brand is excelling for doing stuff like that. So I think there's just going to be more customer experience. Whether they ultimately buy something online, it's their product and their values. It doesn't really matter, but they've still got to create their experience, you know, show off their brand in the best way possible. And, you know, as much advertisement and everything else and awareness, you know, we're saturated with a lot of it, but I think brands that are separating themselves from that are in bricks and mortar. And, you know, when someone has a tangible experience, then it delivers so much for the brand.
Right, one last question. Because speaking about, I know, sorry, but just I think it's quite interesting because obviously our whole prerogative is store experience, and we want to work with clients who are really dedicated to that. But what's your favorite store? Because I know you were saying, like, if you have that store experience, it makes it enjoyable, and it's not just about, it's not just a kind of commercial transaction then.
No, it's not at all, is it? You put me on the spot.
It's hard, isn't it?
It is so hard. I think I sort of you grab bits from different ones who give you different feelings, and it's not necessarily about the latest technology, but sometimes it's just about the quality of the product or how well it's showcased. Or, you know, I tend to buy from the same repeat brands, and that's often because I like their branding or the way their values, or, you know, their experience when I'm shopping. But to put me on the spot and give you one example, that is a tricky one. I might have to come back to you on it.
You've given me one before. I think it was at Red Brick.
Oh, Red Brick Mill, yeah, that's a great space. So that's mainly interior furniture.
Okay.
And that's an old mill over Huddersfield Way. Yes. But they've got some great interior brands in there, and it's all out there to sort of sit on and mess with, and, you know, some of it's quite expensive, I'm not going to lie, but some of it isn't. So, you know, yeah, so you can enjoy and dream. Yeah. But, you know, but some of them are like investment pieces or bits that you think, you know, do bring you that delight and that joy, and I love that. And, you know, the space itself, it's a big, airy mill. There's lots going on in there. There's lots to see. There's cafes as well. So, of course, it's always nice. So you can make a morning or an afternoon of it. Again, it's just part of the experience. There's not necessarily any set bit of magic behind what it is that they've done, but they've just got a series of different companies in showing off what it is that they do to the best of their abilities. And, you know, it's great to see and it's great to experience. Yeah.
Sounds like a lot more fun IKEA.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, IKEA when we bring the kids, it's taking the kids to IKEA. Yeah, that can be an event. That's true. Yeah, let's say. But yeah, again, they've got it right. They do so much right, and it's experiencing it, seeing it, and visualizing it, and really getting into the hearts and minds of people. And, you know, it's I guess it's one of the reasons they're so successful. Yeah.
Brill. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Much appreciated.